Good afternoon, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Pan. I said good evening now that we're at 6:30. It feels like afternoon because it's still so sunny out. Welcome into Live Weather Impact. It is now Monday, May 18th, 2026. We are looking at a toasty stretch of weather here. Actually on weather 2, James, and that always throws us off because we have something wrong with our weather one. But what we're tracking, guys, is some hot weather to start this week, but some big changes unfolding for later this week. We actually are going to have some rain chances heading into the Carolinas. When we're watching this situation in the middle of the country, it's been a very active stretch, which is kind of on par for May. But with the ridge over the southeast, troughing over the middle of the country, I mean, it's the perfect setup for day after day of severe weather. And ongoing right now in parts of Kansas, Nebraska, even now into northwest Missouri, southern Iowa. We're seeing a pretty good outbreak of supercells and tornadoes ongoing right now. You see that area highlighted in the middle of the country. Tomorrow will be another day along this frontal boundary from the Great Lakes to southern Texas. And then on Wednesday, that front gets close to us and kind of stalls. That's when we end up seeing some isolated showers and storms likely in the mountains and foothills. Our best rain chances are probably going to come on Thursday. Now, it's hot out there. We got 90 today, but man, up in Raleigh, they got up into 96, 97 or something today. Second day in the mid-90s. Even Tim, he got up to 92 up in Greensboro. So it was a super toasty day. And tonight, those temperatures only fall back into the upper 60s. Their low this morning was 69. So I think we'll really struggle to get below 70 tonight. If you thought it was hot today, wait till tomorrow. It's going to be equally as hot. I think low and mid-90s for the most part. Now, one thing you noticed, the humidity came back yesterday. We saw dew points jump into the 60s. They're going to get a lot worse as the week goes on. Tropical moisture moving into the Carolinas, and I think the air you can wear is going to be here by this weekend with dew points pushing 70 degrees at some point as all that moisture wraps around this big Bermuda high, which is going to shift east as we get closer to the weekend. And that's going to provide the chance for pop-up showers and storms on Wednesday, but primarily Thursday, in particular, because we'll have a front kind of draped across the region. Also, a unique little swirl, a little low-pressure system off the coast kind of gets sucked into this as well. It's not a tropical system, but it could add some moisture to the whole system as we get later this week. You can see this is the first time in a long time our 7-day rainfall chances pretty much pegged at 50-60%. From Thursday through the weekend. Now, that doesn't mean it rains the entire time. It just means there's a pretty good chance of a scattered to isolated thunderstorm at any point during that period. And we're getting into that typical like late afternoon, early evening time frame. So think 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. That's really kind of the best setup for some pop-up storms. And boy, it's nice to see this. Look at this. We've got purple and blue on the map. You know, I've shown this a lot. That's over 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of rain. This is a pretty good setup, honestly, for us to get some average rainfall, if not slightly above, over the next 7 days. This is also a good sign, all of this tropical moisture. You can see deeper moisture off the coast, and notice that some of that sweeps up here along the front. And so we've got the moisture. That we're not going to be lacking that. I think the big thing is the trigger for the showers and storms we're going to have the next couple of days. And initially it's that front that gets stalled, but then it's going to turn to just the heating of the day, so pop-up thunderstorms. So that's why that's a little less of a certainty as we get into the weekend. It's hard to pinpoint, where we're going to see the best chances. But certainly, if you're heading out to the Speedway this weekend, I got Friday, Saturday, Sunday here, we're certainly going to see the potential for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Kind of warm, kind of humid, not crazy hot though, probably lower 80s for the most part, just because we actually have some cloud cover around. The rest of the weekend forecast, big holiday weekend, folks, I know we'll be doing all kinds of outdoor activities. We've got parades, we've got boating, got lake fishing, got everything that's going to be going on this weekend. You just need to be ready for a pop-up shower or thunderstorm pretty much any afternoon and evening throughout the holiday weekend. And that's not too out of the ordinary for Memorial Day weekend. In fact, I could probably tell you every Memorial Day weekend probably has some type of chance of pop-up storms. It's just been so weird because this spring has been so dry. We haven't had any thunderstorms at all, let alone rainfall. So it feels weird to actually have a weekend where we've got some thunderstorms. And I know a lot of folks have outdoor plans. These won't ruin your plans. This is pretty typical. You would deal with this every single weekend if we didn't have this drought ongoing. So your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast does show the heat the next couple of days, but better rain chances Thursday night into Friday, and then going into the weekend, you see the rain chances actually stay around 50%. Temperatures, we could get wedged in a little bit Friday, Saturday. Northeast winds maybe keep us a little cooler, but either way, there's decent rain chances, and that extends into next week, which is really honestly a good setup. The fact that we've had these pop-up afternoon storms. I will tell you that you won't see rain every day. It won't be widespread rain, but with that many days of afternoon, evening thunderstorms, there's a good chance one of those days you will get a storm over your house, hopefully to soak your yard, soak your plants, get you some much-needed rain. And we really want to see that heavy rain up in the mountains and foothills to help get into the Catawba Basin, which is going to replenish all of the lakes and reservoirs, get our water levels back up in our water supply. And that would actually help alleviate some of the water restrictions. So we really do want to see some of that rainfall up in the northern part of the mountains. And when I was showing you the QPF forecast, we have the 7-day forecast. That's why it's kind of exciting to see those heavy rainfall amounts. I'll show you this real quickly. Up in parts of the foothills, those areas of purple from Hickory, Morganton, Taylorsville up to Boone. Yeah, that's the headwaters for the Catawba Basin. So that would be ideal for our water supply. All right, so stick around. We've got a guest today. We're going to talk about Storm Prediction Center convective outlooks. Tim and I will talk about that, some of the new things to look for. That's coming up right after the break.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
Hey, welcome back. Tim Buckley joins me as always from WFMY, and I saw you got pretty toasty up that way today, Tim. What, you guys hit 92, did I see?
Yeah, we decided to join the party for a change.
Yeah.
We've been reluctant so far, but yeah, Brad, it was our first 90-degree day, get this, since August 17th of last year, which means we went half of August without doing it. We went all of September without doing it. And today was the first time. So yeah, we're up to 92 today. And we'll have a couple more of these, as you know, the next couple of afternoons.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because we were 90, you guys were 92, and what was Raleigh, 96 today? I mean, it was kind of crazy. Raleigh had 2 days in the
True
mid-90s.
Raleigh fashion.
Yeah, Raleigh, there's something going. That ASOS over there is cooking. They're always super hot. They were like 94 at like noon. It was crazy over there. Obviously, we've got a lot of active weather in the middle of the country, Tim. I know you've been kind of keeping an eye on it. It's been an active stretch of weather.
Yeah.
I've been watching some of the coverage out there, following some chasers. Big old line of supercells. Had a PDS tornado watch in effect, which means particularly dangerous situation. So pretty high-end tornado risk in parts of Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, now moving into parts of Iowa and northwestern Missouri, kind of all coming together there, northwest of like Kansas City, south of Omaha. So pretty active day out there. And, it's pretty typical in May. This is a pretty active time of year. If you're a chaser, this is definitely a time. A lot of folks will head out to the plains to do some chasing, central and southern plains, and then work your way up to the northern plains as the season goes on. And, we've got a guest today that's going to kind of talk about some of the outlooks that we look at quite a bit, Tim, and I know you're familiar with these, but we show them on air quite a bit. The Storm Prediction Center puts out these amazing severe weather outlooks. We call them convective outlooks. Kind of shows the risk for severe weather. Today was one of those moderate risk days in the middle of the country, and so we thought we'd bring in a guest from the Storm Prediction Center to kind of talk about these outlooks, because there was some subtle changes this year, Tim, and I don't think a lot of meteorologists paid attention to, but now we have kind of conditional probabilities in some of these outlooks that show us the chances of high-end tornadoes or hail or even wind risk. So bringing in the warning coordinating meteorologist from the SPC, Evan Bentley. And Evan, before we get into the outlooks, what is your role at SPC so folks understand what that means at the Storm Prediction Center?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to explain that, because I'm the warning coordination meteorologist. However, at the Storm Prediction Center, we don't issue any actual warnings. Those come from the local forecast office, so it is a little confusing there. But it's essentially the same type of role, though, right? Yeah. It's just having a national scale to our outreach, and that's with the local media, it'd be local media at the local office. Here is national media, national emergency management organizations such as FEMA, Red Cross, and then also all the local National Weather Service offices. In many ways, they are also our customers. And so we're kind of a liaison to all of those places. And for me at the SPC, it's kind of on a more national scale than at the local forecast office.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for explaining that, because it's a local role, but also you have a national role, so that's really interesting. So let's talk about the outlook. So we show them on air. I think the public is somewhat used to seeing these now. We've kind of simplified them a little bit with our number scale. Sometimes locally we'll even kind of make them a little bit easier to understand with different colors. But essentially, these outlooks are super useful, Evan, for folks to know when we're going to have severe weather. What changes happened this year that the public needs to understand? There's some added information that you guys are providing to help people understand and kind of gauge the risk even more this year than in previous years.
Right. So we added additional intensity information. So in the past, we really only had one way to convey intensity, was whether, for wind, was it hurricane force or not hurricane force that we expected the wind gust to be. Now we can add a lot more nuance in there. We can say, oh yeah, we think there's reasonable potential for hurricane force winds, or 85 plus mile an hour winds, or 95 plus mile per hour winds. And then also in the past, we needed a certain number of reports. So we could be like, we might see a few hurricane force wind gusts, but not enough to actually put a intensity area in there in the past. Now that it's conditional, we can basically lower that threshold, so we can give a little bit more information in these scenarios, not have such a high bar to add anything about that intensity information. And the same thing's there for hail and tornadoes as well. So it's just a lot more information that we always had in our outlooks, but a lot of times it was buried in the text. So you'd have to dig through and see, they mentioned the potential for giant hail today. What did they mean by giant? 3.5 inches. Okay, in what area? Let me try to read. It looks like they're saying Western North Carolina, but does that include Eastern? Now we are explicitly saying what we're forecasting and in what area we're forecasting in.
Evan, thanks so much for joining us. So I think what's clear to people now is that not only are you getting the category level, but you're also getting an intensity level. How are you seeing it being interpreted by people like Brad and I, who might be in the media, or also people in the public? Are they using it the right way? Are there any misconceptions that you want to clear up here, or best practices to kind of help communicate this?
Yeah, overall, I've been very happy with the way that I've seen it communicated, because it is a challenging subject. And I mean, it took a long time for us to, put together our training and really figure out how we were going to explain this fairly complicated topic that was necessary for the science, but was going to be a communication challenge, but also is really valuable information that we need to share. So how can we do that? And I've been pretty happy with what I've seen, and I think it's being communicated well. One thing that we've realized that we could probably do a better job of, and just making sure that there's awareness of it, is that we have changed what the probabilities and the actual intensity information means. So, for example, in the past, if you looked on the map and you saw 15% tornado probabilities with the hatching on top of it, that in the past was a moderate risk. Now it's not, because the hatching means something different. So we can have a 15% probability of tornadoes with that intensity level 1, and that's only an enhanced risk under the new system. And so we have had some events where it's there, where kind of the messaging is treating that 15 SIG 1 like the old moderate risk would be. And so really there's just some reminders that need to take place in there of really kind of breaking it down. What is the actual categorical risk on any day? No, today's an enhanced level tornado risk and a moderate level wind risk. So the wind should be the primary threat to communicate with more of a conditional tornado threat. And that's something that we've really tried to help, convey to our partners and to make sure we can get that piece squared away. But I mean, that's only really one small piece that we've seen as a challenge. And for the most part, it's really been great the way the information's been shared.
So, Evan, talk about the outlooks in general. It wasn't too long ago we've added the enhanced. We have marginal enhanced now in there, and I know there's still some confusion with the words. And we went to the numeric scale, which seems to work really well with the public. I think they kind of really gauge that. But talk a little bit about how the public can use this more effectively. Because I'm looking at the current outlook today, and just for an example, James can show it. There's our moderate risk. So if I pull up the moderate risk, I could show you the tornado conditional, conditional level here is a SIG 2. And if I look at the wind, it's a SIG 1. And if I look at the hail, it's a SIG 2. So what does that mean in layman's terms, that people could say, okay, the hatched area is an area where we expect stronger tornadoes, larger hail, and sometimes it goes outside of what normally we would look at. So, for instance, you're looking at this moderate risk for tornadoes, but the significant tornado risk is actually kind of outside the area. Explain how that happens outside of an area that we normally would look for significant tornadoes.
Yeah, so that's part of the power of this new system, is that it's a conditional intensity. So it's saying if we get a tornado in this area, this is how strong we might expect it to be. For that SIG level 2, we're essentially saying a reasonable max intensity of EF3. So really we're saying if tornadoes occur in this area, there's a decent chance we could see an EF3 or an intense tornado here today. Now, let me be cautious with that's a reasonable max intensity. There's always extremes to the distribution where you could have a violent tornado, because there's still a 4 or 5% chance that a tornado could be that strong even within a SIG 2 area. So it's not an absolute maximum, but it's on most days you would expect the maximum intensity to be EF3. Is a more simple way to communicate that message. And as for putting it outside the main probability areas, that's a lot of the value, because we have these days where man, I don't know if we're going to get a storm, but if we do, look out. The environment's primed. If we get a storm, we could have giant hail, or we could have really strong tornadoes. And in the past, if we wanted to maybe message that at a higher risk category, we would have to kind of fudge the probabilities to get the actual outlook to hit the category we want. Let's say if we wanted enhanced level messaging, we would have to get the probabilities to at least 10% on tornado, even if we thought there was only going to be one storm. So that was a challenge under the old system. Now we can go SIG 2 with only 5% coverage of tornadoes, and we can get up to a high risk category there.
Evan, what gave you guys the confidence to be able to go forward with this change? Because, it's not something that's been able to be done before, is to, forecast the intensity, or at least it wasn't being communicated that way. What kind of research went into this?
Yeah, so this has been a long time coming. This didn't just come out of the middle of nowhere. So it started all the way back in 2019 at the Hazardous Weather Test Bed here at the Storm Prediction Center. We get together a bunch of people from the broadcast community, from the operational community, from academia, from research, even from abroad. They all come in and they rate a multitude of models and new technology that we have. And one of the things that we were testing in there was this conditional intensity idea. Do we have the ability to forecast a potential intensity before these events occur? And we were showing some skill, but there was also a lot of nuance in how do we do it? How many categories do we have for each? And that was part of what we were figuring out in those first couple of years. Then starting in late 2021 in SPC operations, we started doing these experimental conditional intensities right after the outlook. So the outlook would be issued, we'd immediately do these conditional intensities, so it was in semi-real time. It took a couple of years after that, and then by the time we got into 2024 and especially 2025, we started feeling pretty comfortable with it. And we went and looked back at the verification on it, and we actually verified very well. We were showing even more discrimination between the weak tornado, in a tornado example, the weak tornado events and the intense to violent tornado events. We're showing even more discrimination using the system than we even expected when we set it up. And so that really showed that we were, had skill in doing it. And once we proved we had skill, it was like, hey, it's time to share this information because it's valuable information to communicators of our severe weather probabilities.
Yeah, and I actually like that part of it where the chance of tornadoes might be low, but the ones that do develop are super strong. Because in the Carolinas, we get a lot of these high shear, low cape events, which feels like that's like hey, if these storms can get going, boy, do we have some wind shear to feed off of. And I love the fact that we have that ability to communicate that now, because that is difficult, because you might have a really strong cap, and it's like out in the plains you get these really high cape days and you got a really strong cap, but if the cap breaks, holy cow, look out. And so there are a lot of days like that where I think this is really, really useful. So it is nice to see it. I think the interesting thing is, how have you guys dealt with this? As broadcasters, we struggle with this a lot. You guys are using hash marks. Have you guys found, is that effective? Is there maybe another way? I struggle with how we're going to use it on air. Do we do it as a separate product? Do we overlay it on the Outlook? So what have you guys noticed has worked best for you guys?
Yeah, there may be some value in separating it. And actually, some of the social science research showed that the public had a little bit easier job or ability to discriminate and actually understand what we were trying to do when we had those separated. But the problem with that is that works well when you can control the narrative, like let's say in a briefing setting, or if you're doing a broadcast where you're kind of controlling the narrative for a 3-4 minute bit, whatever. When we are just posting the maps publicly on our webpage, we have the problem with, if we just posted one map for the probability and another map for the intensity, and they weren't cross-referenced, if someone just took one map and ran with it, it'd be an entire half of the message that'd be missing. And so that was why we made the decision to keep it all on one map, because it's important for something like that we don't control its dissemination. But in a controlled environment, it definitely might be worth, and I've seen some broadcast networks utilize that, where they separate that. I haven't heard a lot of feedback on what feedback they may have heard about doing that, but it does seem like a different way to convey the information that might help to simplify it. And another part of it might just be using the categorical outlook, because in the end, we're combining the probabilities and the intensity into what the threat of the day is. Is it a level 3 or a level 4 out of 5 threat today? And then within that, maybe a dashed area on top of it, or a highlighted area that said, yeah, we've got an enhanced risk out today. This is the area where the SPC is most concerned about giant hail, right? Yeah. That might be even a more simplistic way to explain it, because it is quite a complicated topic.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. You're right. And who would ever take a map out of context on the internet, right? That never happens, Evan.
Evan, I'm curious, with the updated probability tables this year, is it important for meteorologists to kind of reset their expectations a little bit? I guess what I'm meaning to say is, if you had one expectation of what a moderate day was in the past, might that be a little different now? Could we see more moderate risk days as a result of the updated probabilities, is kind of what I'm getting at, or is it the same as it used to be, or even less?
Yeah, so that was actually something that we were very careful about when we developed this, because we know a lot of people have been utilizing our 5-tier system of products for a long time. And there's a lot of emergency management community, the broadcast community, even the general public. They know what an enhanced risk or moderate risk means, whether they call it that or they call it a level 3 or level 4 out of 5 risk, or the orange or the red on the map, whatever you prefer. People have familiarization with that. So we really wanted to make sure when we made these changes that we weren't going to change that. And the promising thing we've seen so far in the first couple of months of doing this is we're not seeing a bunch more moderate risks or a lot fewer moderate risks. We really seem to be about on track with what we were doing before. And that was the idea. We built the probability and the intensity table based on what we were trying to do with our forecast process. So a moderate risk level day is supposed to be this type of tornado day. We tried to keep that in the essence of that, and just have the probabilities and the intensities match. what we expected that outcome to be. Because in the end, our categorical outlook in many ways is just our expectation for the impacts of the day. If we're going level 4 out of 5 tornado day, it's because we expect there to be a lot of tornado impacts from that event. Whether or not we get there from having a bunch of EF2 tornadoes or 1 or 2 EF3 to EF4 tornadoes, both of those have a lot of impacts, even though they're totally different events. And that's one of the great things about this new system is we can communicate what type of day is it going to be. Not just it's a level 4 out of 5 tornado risk. It's a level 4 out of 5 because we might see several dozen EF2 tornadoes versus it might be a high impact day because 1 or 2 towns might be wiped off the map and most people will see blue skies. They're totally different events, and we can now communicate that.
Yeah, that's great. We got about 2 minutes, and I'm probably not going to leave enough time for this, but I just want to hit on this real quickly because in the meteorological community, at least, we're going to retire some short range modeling, right? The NAM's going away. Eventually, some of the high res rapid refresh modeling is going away. How do you see that changing at Storm Prediction Center? The guidance you guys use. I know you've been using some of these experimental models in the background. Maybe briefly just hit on the fact that some of these models are set to retire, and we've got some new modeling, and how those could actually help us going forward.
Yeah, so we developed the HREF here at the Storm Prediction Center, and it's been an invaluable tool. There's been a long time that the gold standard that models have been set up against at the hazardous weather test bed has been, can they beat the HREF? And for the longest time, that has been an unattainable goal. And really it was even up here until very recently. But with the addition of not retiring the HRR and allowing that to continue when we roll out with the REFS, which will be the replacement for the HREF, we were able to create a combination of that was actually able to slightly exceed the performance of the HREF in the 2025 experiment. So we're optimistic that despite all these changes and the challenges that'll come with a new modeling suite, that we have made some progress here at the SPC to make it have a minimal impact on our forecast operations.
Yeah, that's good to hear. All right, we got 30 seconds. Tim, anything else you want to ask before we let Evan go here? Because I know you guys have had a busy day in the middle of the country. You've probably got a lot of work to get back to.
Yeah, I think he's pretty busy with all the action going on level 4 out in Kansas right now.
Yeah, one thing I'll bring it home with, just say there in the Carolinas, something valuable on this is that we can actually now increase even higher probabilities for some of these events that are lower intensity, but a lot of people might be impacted. The 400 report days, that's a new way that we can communicate under the system that we weren't able to do before because we're forced to go to level 4 out of 5.